It all started with what was supposed to be just a normal night out. A little fun, a few drinks, and some time with friends. But what happened next didn't just stay in the club. It tore through social media, shook a celebrity household, and left millions questioning everything they thought they knew about parenting, privilege, and pressure. On July 1st, Kandi Burruss, the daughter of Grammy-winning artist and Real Housewives of Atlanta star Kandi Burruss, suddenly found herself at the center of a storm that no one saw coming. You won't believe how quickly it all spiraled, because this wasn't just another party gone wrong. This was one night, one outrageous bill, and one explosive mother-daughter fallout, all broadcast for the world to dissect. Now, Kandi wasn't new to cameras. She practically grew up in the spotlight. Red carpets, confessionals, family dinners captured for Bravo audiences. But this time, the camera didn't glamorize her. It stripped everything away and exposed her reality. At just 22 years old, fresh out of NYU, Kandi was supposed to be stepping into adulthood with grace, maybe launching her career, maybe proving she could stand on her own outside of her mom's shadow. Instead, she dove headfirst into controversy with a $14,000 nightclub bill. That's right, $14,000 in one single night. And the craziest part? Kandi proudly admitted on air that she covered half of it herself, $7,000 swiped straight from her personal credit card. The other half? Allegedly picked up by her close friend and castmate, Amira. But let's be clear, this wasn't just about overpriced cocktails. This was next-level luxury. We're talking premium bottle service, Don Julio 1942 lined up on the table, velvet ropes, private booths, VIP treatment, the works. To the world, it didn't just look like Kandi was partying. It looked like she was trying to send a message: I've arrived. I can play in the big leagues. But here's where it gets shocking. The very moment Kandi said it out loud, the internet turned savage. Instagram Reels popped up within minutes, Twitter exploded with hot takes, and Reddit users were already pulling old clips from RHOA to drag her. The backlash wasn't just about spending money, it was about image. People started saying Kandi was out of touch, spoiled, and living in a fantasy that only her last name could buy. Some accused her of flashing wealth she hadn't truly earned. Others argued she was just a young adult learning how to navigate money in the public eye. And right in the middle of this online storm stood her mother, Kandi Burruss. The same Kandi Burruss who had fought tooth and nail to build her empire, the singer, songwriter, businesswoman, and reality TV powerhouse. But this time, she wasn't smiling. She wasn't clapping back with her usual calm shade. She was shaking with disbelief. I'm paying $14,000 for bottles? She snapped on camera, her voice cracking just enough to show the heartbreak hiding behind her anger. Her hands trembled, and for the first time, it became clear, this wasn't just about money. This was about control slipping through a mother's fingers. Kandi didn't stop there. She locked eyes with Kandi, the daughter she had sacrificed so much for, and said what every viewer at home was already thinking: girl, you've got way too much cash to waste. But this wasn't just anger, it was fear. Panic. The kind only a parent feels when they realize their child might be speeding down a road they can't pull them back from. And then, it happened. The moment that fans still can't stop replaying. Right in the middle of their heated argument, Kandi picked up a napkin and threw it in Kandi's face. Not with hate. With heartbreak. It wasn't an attack, it was a desperate scream for her daughter to wake up. But let me tell you something, this moment didn't come out of nowhere. Kandi had warned her before. Months earlier, in an episode filmed during a trip to Brooklyn, Kandi had laid down the rules. Graduate, and then you have 6 months. Get a job, go to law school, or the money stops. No fine print. No loopholes. Kandi knew the deal. But that $14,000 night told a different story. It said she wasn't listening, or worse, she never planned to. And here's where it gets interesting. Kandi didn't flinch. She didn't break. She crossed her arms, leaned back, and smiled. A calm smile that, to viewers, looked dangerously close to smug. She told her mother she had everything under control. She had paid her share. She was an adult now. But Kandi wasn't buying it. With whose credit card? She pressed. With what job? Every word landed like a dagger. Because beneath the shouting, beneath the public humiliation, there was a painful truth Kandi couldn't escape. She didn't see a young woman in control. She saw her little girl playing dress-up in a grown-up world. And here's what made this story different. Kandi wasn't just another random influencer blowing cash for clout. She had real deals. Big brands like Dark and Lovely, Makeup Forever, and more had partnered with her. She wasn't broke. She wasn't irrelevant. But at that moment, it wasn't about contracts or campaigns. It was about respect, responsibility, and whether Riley was truly ready to step into her own spotlight, or if she was still living off her mother's shadow. She had the followers, the likes, the engagement stats, the kind of numbers that would impress any brand manager. In Riley's world, dropping $7,000 wasn't reckless. It was routine. It was the price of maintaining an image, a lifestyle, a name. But in Kandi's world, that wasn't just a swipe, it was a red flag. A flashing siren screaming, "She's not ready." Because behind all the glam, Riley had grown up in a household where money was earned, not handed out. Where budgeting wasn't punishment, it was survival. Now Riley was in New York City. A city that didn't care about last names, didn't care who her mama was. A city that could turn one wrong move into a headline and one misstep into a downfall. And in that city, one overpriced bottle of Don Julio and one swipe of a credit card was enough to crack a relationship that had taken decades to build. But let's be clear, this story wasn't about tequila. It wasn't even about money. It was about something far bigger, a widening gap between generations. A daughter chasing independence, freedom, and validation. A mother terrified of the cost of it, not just financially, but emotionally. And the public? They were glued to the drama like it was the season finale of their favorite show. On one side, fans praised Riley as a girl boss in training. On the other, critics dragged her as spoiled beyond saving. But almost no one looked in the middle, that painful, gray space where a mother isn't scared of losing her daughter to the streets, but to a fantasy life that doesn't last. Then, just when it felt like the tension couldn't climb any higher, Riley made a move that silenced everyone. As Kandi's voice rose, sharp with fear and frustration, the air in the room grew so thick you could feel it through the screen. And Riley? She didn't cry. She didn't flinch. She just sat there, steady, unshaken. That calmness, borderline defiance, was louder than any argument. She didn't shout. She didn't even blink. Instead, she leaned back, her tone almost too calm for the storm she was standing in. "I'm managing. I have my own things going on." But Kandi wasn't having it. Her frustration cracked through the air like thunder. Managing with what? Instagram likes? A few sponsorships? Baby girl, social media doesn't pay for maturity. That's when Riley made her boldest move yet. She didn't back down. She fired back with receipts. Dark and lovely. Makeup forever. Paid collabs. Influencer posts. Even a potential DJing gig in Brooklyn. On paper, she looked like a rising star. But to Kandi, it was smoke and mirrors. Glitter with no gold underneath. She leaned forward, eyes locked on her daughter, her voice dropping low, this time not angry, but deadly serious. "You have a deadline, Riley. 6 months. That clock is ticking. Either enroll in school, or start earning for RHOA. Because this lifestyle, this freedom, it comes with an expiration date." And just like that, the party energy evaporated. The background music suddenly felt quieter. The sparkle of the night dulled. This wasn't about $14,000 bottles anymore. This was about trust. A trust Kandi had built when she said, "I believe in you." But that trust was cracked, fragile, hanging by a thread. Riley tried to play it cool, arms crossed, chin lifted, but her hands betrayed her, fidgeting under the table. Her voice, once steady, slowed. For the first time, the confident facade slipped, and behind her eyes was something raw, doubt. And while mother and daughter clashed inside that room, the outside world was watching like hawks. Within hours, Twitter had turned into a full-blown battleground. Some called Kandi a strong black mother, refusing to let her child fall into entitlement. Others dragged her, accusing her of humiliating Riley for ratings. Reddit threads didn't hold back either. They labeled Riley just another Nepo baby, faking adulthood with her mama's money. The internet wasn't just mocking her spending anymore. They were mocking her entire identity. But then, when it seemed Riley was about to crack, she said the words no one expected. Her voice, soft but shaking, cut through the noise like glass shattering. "No matter what I do, I'm never enough. I'm not you. I'm trying to live a different life." And in that single moment, the whole room froze. Kandi's face fell. Viewers at home went silent. And for the first time, people didn't see a spoiled rich kid or a strict mother. They saw two women, mother and daughter, both drowning under the weight of expectation. That silence after Riley spoke? It was louder than every scream, every clapback, every dollar sign thrown in their faces. Even Kandi, Queen Hustler herself, sat frozen. The fire in her eyes flickered, dimmed. Because in Riley's voice, she didn't just hear defiance. She heard something she knew all too well. And let me tell you, this wasn't some spoiled kid whining about champagne showers. This was a young woman, raised under the blinding spotlight of fame, finally cracking open her truth. Kandi had built her empire brick by brick, through sleepless nights, broken deals, and scars the public never saw. She thought she was teaching Riley to be strong. But at that moment she realized, maybe Riley wasn't rebelling. Maybe she was just trying to breathe. And then Riley dropped the line that broke the internet in half. I haven't just been partying. I've been trying to keep up, because being me is exhausting. The camera cut to Kandi's face, and you could see it. The frustration melted into confusion. Then it hurt. Then something deeper. Guilt. Riley wasn't done. Her voice shook, but her words hit harder than any argument before. I'm not just your daughter. I'm the daughter of a black celebrity in New York, in 2025. I can't blink without somebody calling it attitude. I can't smile without being compared to you. I can't even exist without people saying I'm not enough. And just like that, Twitter, TikTok, Reddit, all froze. Suddenly, that $14,000 meltdown wasn't about receipts or reckless spending. It was about identity. About pressure. About a daughter suffocating under the weight of her mother's shadow and the world's expectations. And then came the twist that nobody was ready for. Riley's voice cracked, her guard finally slipping. Sometimes, I spend money just to feel like I matter. Because in this city, if you don't look expensive, they treat you like you're invisible. Silence. A truth so raw it cut deeper than any fight about bills. Viewers at home were left clutching their chests, and even Kandi, who had always stood unshaken, looked like the ground beneath her had just split open. That one confession cracked the entire narrative. Riley wasn't flaunting wealth, she was clawing for control. She was desperately trying to piece together a version of herself before the world decided for her. And Kandi? She just sat there, stunned. Because in that instant, she realized this wasn't a tantrum. This was a confession. A cry buried under designer makeup, brand partnerships, and champagne bottles. But here's the tragedy. While Riley was bearing her soul, the public didn't see pain. They saw content. Her breakdown became memes. TikToks labeled her, delusional rich girl. Twitter threads mocked her, screenshots turned her tears into punchlines. No one stopped to ask why. But just when viewers thought they had seen the final twist, another bombshell dropped. One that made everything 10 times heavier. A leaked voice note surfaced online. A voice that shook the internet. It wasn't Riley's. It was Ariana Bierman. Yes, Riley's longtime friend, fellow castmate, and the daughter of Kim Zolciak. In a leaked group chat recording, Ariana's tone was unsteady, almost trembling as she said, Riley's been holding it together better than most of us. Y'all don't even know what she's been dealing with lately. Fire, and with that single sentence, the internet exploded again. This wasn't about tequila anymore. It wasn't about bottle service or influencer culture. It was about something darker. Insiders began whispering, what producers cut from the final edit was even more explosive than the $14,000 bill. Behind the scenes, Riley had been grappling with something deeply personal. Her biological father, a man who had been absent nearly her entire life, was suddenly back, resurfacing with late-night calls, emotional apologies, and promises he never kept when she needed him most. For Riley, it wasn't just awkward, it was destabilizing. Because how do you process a man reappearing after years of silence, right when the entire world is already watching you stumble? And here's the kicker. Sources say that some of Riley's most recent choices, the overspending, the nightlife, the desperate need to be seen, weren't rebellion. They were reactions. A young woman trying to fill a void no amount of Don Julio or designer sponsorships could ever fix. In that quiet interview, Kandi finally admitted something raw, something even her fiercest critics didn't expect. Her voice wasn't sharp this time. It was softer, almost trembling. I thought I was protecting her, she said. But maybe I was just protecting myself. From him, from the past. And I didn't realize Riley was carrying the weight of both our battles. For years, Kandi had built her image as the unshakable mother, the hustler who provided, the woman who didn't need anyone. But in that moment, she revealed the truth. Behind all the strength was fear. Fear that her daughter would make the same mistakes she once did. Fear that the man who broke her heart might now break Riley's too. And here's what hit hardest. Kandi admitted that the fight over the $14,000 wasn't really about money. It was about control. It was about fear. It was about a mother watching her daughter slip into a world she couldn't rescue her from. I didn't see Riley as a young woman trying to find her own path, Kandi said. I saw her as the little girl I was scared of losing. And maybe I already was. That confession turned the narrative upside down. Fans who once dragged Riley started defending her. Critics who called Kandi too harsh now saw the vulnerability in her walls. And for the first time in months, the internet wasn't asking whose side they were on. They were asking a bigger question. Backhand index pointing right. What does healing between a mother and daughter really look like when the whole world is watching? Kandi saw everything. Riley's bold blog announcement, the exclusive DJ sets, the split reactions online, the critics, the cheerleaders, the headlines that refused to die down. But for the very first time, she didn't rush to control the narrative. She didn't try to silence the noise or step in to protect Riley from the storm. Instead, she watched quietly, almost with a strange calm, as her daughter faced the world head-on. And in that silence, something shifted. This wasn't about a spoiled child spending money anymore. It wasn't about internet drama or Bravo storylines. This was about a young woman finally carving out her own identity, even if it came with mistakes, pressure, and judgment. Riley wasn't disappearing into her mother's shadow. She wasn't begging for approval. She was standing her ground, flaws and all, and writing her own script in a world that was 10 times louder and 10 times harsher than the one Kandi once fought through. And whether the internet calls it rebellion, clout chasing, or growth, one thing is certain: this isn't the end of Kandi Burruss. This is only the beginning of a story the world won't be able to stop watching.